Do you presume that a trade deal, when there is something that's actually signed, will mean no added tariffs rather than a removal of an existing tariff?
Well, I think the phrase we're all using is phasing, and therefore I think there's a very strong chance that one of the sticking points all the way back in May was the implementation and the ability of the Americans to verify whether China were changing the terms of trade and the use of industrial subsidies. So I think this will just take time. However, I feel the dialogue has moved on substantially. I think nearly a year ago you were breaking the story about chips inside a lot of the tech equipment. I think the deal around Huawei is still open in terms of the competition. And now we've got the issue around human rights and whether American savers should actually be able to invest in China that doesn't obey American securities laws. So I think the trade debate is just one headline inside a deterioration in the relationship between the U.S. and China.
And as Francine has pointed out, Jeremy, the U.S. and China have agreed to take steps on IP protection, financial services, and the UN. Of those three nebulous and really broad topics, which would have the most impact on moving the dollar?
Well, that's a very good question, because, as you say, nebulous is probably the right way to look at it at the moment, because, of course, we do wait to see what we're actually talking about here. I think if we are going to see something substantive in terms of the change in terms of sort of the IP process, then I think that would be potentially quite significant moving forward. But I think, as I say, you have to be careful about extrapolating too much on the basis of what we're seeing thus far. So we will wait to see what will transpire over the course of the next days, weeks and months. And I think at the point that you were just referencing about any sort of dialing back in terms of tariffs, I think what we have to remember is that we move into the presidential election period. Either side of the aisle aren't particularly constructive in terms of the trade negotiation or trade relationship between the US and China. So I think uncertainties are going to persist in that regard.